going to introduce briefly the speakers, but then maybe later they can tell us a bit more about their journey and how they came to be where they are today. Maybe we go in this order. Gianmarco Mengaldo is an assistant professor at the National University of Singapore, jointly appointed in mechanical engineering and mathematics, and trained in aerospace engineering at Politecnico di Milano and Imperial College London. He has held roles at ECM, WF, and Caltech. His research bridges mathematics, computation, and AI to tackle complex systems across engineering, geophysics, healthcare, and finance. He focuses on explainable AI, the integration of AI with domain knowledge, high-fidelity simulation, and data-driven pattern discovery. So thanks for coming. Next is Taekyong Louis. He is the president of the Global Council of Responsible AI, Singapore chapter, and a leading voice in ASEAN's AI governance. As a principal consultant at Public Policy Asia Advisors, he helped shape ASEAN's 4IR and digital integration strategies. A seasoned legal expert with 30 years of experience, including as APAC General Counsel at Deutsche Bank, he blends regulatory insight with policy innovation. He's the author of Cybersecurity Guardians of the Digital Frontier. He's known for translating complex tech law into practical frameworks that align with AI innovation and human values. Thanks for coming. On the other side, we have Alexandra Alberta Yu. He's a Singaporean-based jewelry designer and trained gemologist, educated at the Gemological Institute of America, GIA, in New York, with a focus on diamonds and colored stones. After launching her eponymous brand in London, she developed a distinctive style blending gemstone expertise with timeless design. Her pieces reflect a commitment to craftsmanship, originality, and individuality, values that ground her work in an increasing digital world. Last but not least, we have Sarah Lin, an interdisciplinary artist with BFA from Goldsmiths, University of London. Born in Saudi Arabia and shaped by Southeast Asia, her work explores human experience, cultural nuance, and a concept of unwealth through performance and installation. Merging tradition with innovation, she sparks dialogue and creativity across diverse cultural landscapes. Thanks for coming. So this is a topic today that I'm also very interested in as an AI expert and engineer, and how we use AI. AI was born as a way to automate repetitive processes. So the big question is, should we be using it for everything, including creativity? So the first question I want to ask our panelists tonight is, how do you define creativity within your work, or according to your own opinion, and whether you think it's good to use AI or acceptable to use AI for it? Maybe we start from Sarah.
Yeah. Jacob, just slide up.
Hi, thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. So, creativity, the ancient Greece and the greatest thinkers of our time believed that genius was not from them and from an external source. And they believed that it was divine providence that gave them ideas as to how theories worked. Creativity, I think, is a process, is a journey, and is a system of thinking. Yeah. In my own work, the way that I think of creativity is referencing archives, memory, as well as lived experience, phenomena of things existing in reality, and then putting that into a thinking process, and then rendering it into an output.
So how do you see the use of AI for creativity?
Personally, the use of AI for creativity, it's not a huge part of my process. Especially in art making, because a lot of my art is derived from lived experience, which the machine does not know, unless I upload maybe diary entries once since I was 7 into the machine, but still it cannot reference memory for me. And memory is such an intangible thing. It changes, and not to forget nostalgia as another layer on top of memory that changes memory all the time. So it's very unstable. So in terms of the creative process, I only use AI maybe in research, gathering research throughout the web. For example, recently I put in a proposal for the Malta Biennale where I was doing research on a temple in Malta. I've never been, I didn't know the language spoken in Malta is Maltese, I thought Maltese was a dog. But having never been to Malta and never been to temples, I asked Grok, pull me as much as you can about this specific temple. When was it built? And I want all the research articles I can to read about it. But Grok cannot tell me how to feel about it, So in this, I cannot pronounce it. It's Gajenka Temple. For anyone who's Maltese, please forgive me. So the history of this temple was, the mythology behind it was that it was built by a giantess, like a huge ass human. And she built this temple and now it's in ruins and it's been there for 20,000 BC. And Grok can only tell me the research that is already available online thanks to archaeologists, but it cannot tell me how to feel about it. Do I feel like she is too big for a woman? Not too touching, but or what do I feel is it true whether giants really lived, way back? But it cannot tell me how to feel about this. So I think that's the extent of AI in my practice.
Okay,
Thank you.
Marco wants to share your thoughts.
So
You can
creativity and AI, right?
you want to use the mic? Or
Maybe if you can hear me, can you all hear me back as well? Okay, yeah. I was born actually in a house full of paintings. So my father was a painter. So there is some art in my life, but then I took a completely different path. So I was reading a New York Times magazine article from an illustrator, and I found a pretty interesting, say, quote or sentence that he mentioned there. So when it comes to AI systems, foundation models, and recent AI systems, there is always the question whether the AI system is actually generating something entirely new that we've never seen before, or it is actually somehow extrapolating to some extent, but still assembling patterns that are already seen in the training dataset. So when we frequently think about creativity, usually to some extent we think of something that is new, to some extent at least. So the key question here is, are AI systems really producing something new in these recent foundation models, or they actually extrapolating something that was already there before and assembling something that is not entirely new? And the same question goes in the sciences. When we use AI systems for knowledge discovery, for example, are these systems fully capable of knowledge discovery? Or, in fact, they are rearranging something that they've seen from a data set into something plausible on average? That could be a potential good hypothesis, but still not something entirely new.
answering a question with a question.
I will conclude with an additional question, which is the following. So the illustrator in New York Magazine was concluding as follows. Well, maybe my job in travel, maybe not, with AI doing creative work. art typically tends to express the emotion, or tends to transmit emotions that the person who created art put into the painting or whatever art. And the people who see it, they tend to connect to that person's emotions. Now, if an AI system generated that, and you knew that an AI system generated that, would transmit the same emotion, or would you feel the same? I think that was a nice conclusion from that.
Okay, thank you. Alexandra maybe wants to follow up on that or give your own definition of creativity.
Well, yeah, I mean, creativity to me is like, thinking out of the box, coming out with something, yes, coming out with something completely fresh, new, something that people haven't seen before. I mean, if you look at artists that have really broken through, visionaries, what you call them visionaries, right? So visionaries of our time, let's say the artists are like, let's say Yayoi Kusama, or like, let's say Ai Weiwei, or like John Baldessari, people like that. And in my jewelry world, it's people like, for example, there's this guy called Alexander Reza, or like Jar. If you look at him up, he's really like a breakthrough designer who has thought about ideas that people just are blown away with the craftsmanship or the thought process. So for me, definitely creativity is something that I feel it's gotta be completely original, full of individuality, and something that is completely breaking the boundary. For me, that's creativity, and it's problem solving as well. So even like Dyson, for example, for them to create something completely, fresh, new, and completely sellable is really something genius. In terms of AI, to be honest, I'm not really the expert, so maybe you guys who are the AI experts can assist us in certain questions, but I kind of toyed around with AI and in my work, and my journey is fairly beginner, I would say, for the AI trial in my work as a jewelry designer and as a fashion person as well. So I've tried to see how this AI tool can actually, I can use it for example, fashion styling with my jewelry included in the fashion styling, and how the process and whether it comes out with something really fabulous. What I've found is that it's excellent. AI is completely 100% mind-blowing. When I've actually seen what it says and the descriptions of the outfit together with the pairing of the jewelry and everything, I found it to be excellent. However, I think that I realize there's some limitation because it doesn't give me completely fresh answers. It gives me answers that have been tried and tested, things that completely work, and that outfit and pairing will actually be great, but it may not be like, oh my goodness, how did that person think about this pairing? So that's just been my observation, but
like
as
a
well.
direct attack to this side of
No, but along the lines with similar what Gianmarco was saying,
Right.
that
You guys don't
we,
need to be too polite, okay?
I mean, I really don't know.
You're being very diplomatic. You can just say that AI is
Baffled?
bad.
Yeah.
Taekyon, the last word to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I think it's a fantastic and critical question, one that truly sits at the heart of our ongoing legal and ethical debates around AI from a legal and computational perspective. My stance is clear. AI's output, whether it's captivating Dale image or thought-provoking GPT chat poem, can indeed be considered original in its combination and transformation. So let's think about human creativity for a moment. No artist or writer or musician operates in vacuum, right? So we are all influenced by our surroundings, our lived experiences, and vast ocean of work that came before us. Even Picasso drew from African art. Shakespeare's from ancient myths. The human mind synthesizes, reinterprets, and transforms these influences into something genuinely new. So what AI does, takes this very human process and elevate it to an unprecedented scale and speed. It synthesizes and recombines billions of images or trillions of words, data sets so massive, no single human can ever process them. So the outputs aren't just direct copies. They are novel arrangements, unexpected juxtapositions, and often startlingly fresh perspectives. So imagine asking for a futuristic Singapore skyline rendered in the style of the 19th century watercolor, right? Now, a human artist can draw on their understanding of both, but AI can rapidly generate countless unique variations, exploring possibilities that may otherwise remain undiscovered by a single individual. Okay, I think I'll stop there.
That was very strong attack, because he's saying that basically AI is better than any human artist, so we're getting there with the battle. Saranella wants to ask the next question.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great.
Hello? Okay, great. I think this is a very appropriate question right now. I can see in the audience a lot of people are into both creativity and AI. So we want to share that we are going to have a few questions from us as moderator, but then we are really looking forward also to hearing your questions. And I'm sure you have many of those. But I think that right now I'm very curious about it. And also for your knowledge, I wrote 3 books of poems, so apart from doing computational models for my work as a neuroscientist, I'm also very, I would say, quite good creative, and I've shared some of my poems with some people here in the audience. So what do you think? I mean, DALL-E creates images, ChatGPT creates poems. Do you think that these are originals, or do you think that these are derivatives? And I think I would like to first ask this question to Louis.
Thank you very much for that question. It was not totally unexpected, because what AI does really is to learn from a whole range of images, millions and billions of them. So from there, they try to infer and then extrapolate and produce new and novel images, which are actually not seen before. It's not a direct copy. So as far as that is concerned, there is no direct breach of copyright of the original images. And the sad thing about copyright law is it doesn't protect your style. I think that's an area where copyright law need to evolve. So WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, are having their world meeting right now, with the biggest number of countries involved in Geneva at the moment. We hope to receive some guidance from them. So without copyright protection on the style of the author, it's very unfortunate. There's no legal protection. So there's a need to debate this further and to see whether legislative processes and governance can go in that direction, so that those who actually own the style, and very complicated how to determine, may then can put forward a good case. Actually, the entire idea is the participation in the total profits that could be generated as a use, for the use of AI. Thank you.
Yeah, great. So who else wants to start first? Yeah, go sir.
Please forgive me for booing you just now. Yeah, it's all in good banter, but okay. There is AI style though, and being a chronic user of Twitter, it's very obvious when someone uses an LLM to generate their copyright. A lot of people have been pointing out patterns that AI resorts to generating copyright. Not just do we see it in popular culture, on like social media, The thing about LLMs, large language models, which AI is made of, what it does, it extrapolates the best of whatever your prompt asks for, the dominant conversation of whatever trillion of words, as you mentioned, into like the best, what it considers the best according to whatever metric this LLM is trained for, whether it's popularity, whether it's market value. The LLM refers to that and then generates the output. So what you get, which some people refer to as AI slop.
Yes,
And when, I think in Singapore, there's this lady called Jigna Zhang. She's a fashion photographer, and she became really famous in international news so this was pre-AI, when her fashion photography, someone referenced her fashion photography and painted a painting, and it won first place in an oil painting competition. But for anyone with eyes to see, it's almost an exact copy. And it caused a huge hoorah in the art circle, and so many conversations occurred from that. But the final verdict in legal jurisdiction is that the guy essentially got away with it, and he wasn't penalized for essentially copying her photograph. And if we really want to debate on so I think I really like what someone mentioned about style, how do you capture essence, I think, like the essence. Not because we're at GRIS, but sorry. But how do you capture essence? I think that's philosophic in question. Can you really download, are people aware of the Tupac concert? Like they did a hologram of Tupac, the rapper, where they essentially made a model of Tupac. He's a very famous rapper who died. And they made a holographic model of him on stage. And a lot of people were asking whether that was okay, did he consent to having his ghost perform on stage? Sorry for laughing. I have very dark humor, as you can tell. But yeah, I would say that I would have to unfortunately disagree with Mr. Tech. Sorry for disagreeing. That AI can be generative and play a huge part of the art circle, because art is essentially a journey, it's a process. It's not, if we just say art is output, then, everything on Sotheby's or people would derive great joy and value from AI art alone. But no, people need story, people need narrative. And of course AI can do that. There's a huge discourse on storytelling and AI, and you uploading your voice onto an AI engine and essentially computing an entire YouTube video of you explaining something you don't know. I know little to nothing about quantum physics, but if I really wanted to, I could upload my voice, I could upload my photo, and have it render, feed it a few papers and say, make me a YouTube video essay of quantum physics. And but it wouldn't be really genuine. And so we are entering a stage of hyperreality, which is something I'm still reading about, so I can't really fully espouse on that. And what that brings us next to is, I don't know whether we're entering dystopia or utopia. And from what you suggest of having agentic workflow, a big part of art, for me, feels very dystopic in nature. Because this was a, sorry for rambling. You should tell me to stop.
Yeah,
Like,
I-
okay, just one more point. But so recently, I was in a conversation with a few friends who have kids, and they were saying that, oh my God, my kid won't listen. Like, why won't my kid listen to me? And I was like, you know, just that's the point of having a human being. Like if you wanted like an easy thing to listen to, just have an AI machine. And they're making machines right now, robots, you know? Like instead of having a kid, just have like one of Elon's robots with AI on it. You know, like what's the point? Like you have a perfect kid, it will get 100 marks on every test. It won't cry and slam the door in your face. You're like, I hate you, Mom. And then, but yeah. So I know I'm veering a little far away from creativity, but the art and the soul of creativity and the art and soul of the human qualia experience is non-replicable by AI.
No worries, no worries.
And
So Marco, what is your take on this topic?
if, well, I come from a very different field than art, right? So if I can take a slightly different perspective, science, right? So science has a lot of creativity as well, and that thing, modern science is based on inductive reasoning, right? And observation, at least that is the mainstream view, kind of operative ability of hypothesis theories. Now, so when you use generative AI, LLMs to create poetry, or DALL-E to create new images, you might argue that those are the essence or not of human soul or AI soul. But when it comes to science, then typically you just don't want an answer that is something that is to some extent subjective. So ideally you would like to be able to replicate and really reach the essence of what it is that you're trying to do. So there is some sort of tangible essence that you can actually validate through experimental observation. Now, when you take that paradigm, then you enter into a completely different world, because at that point you can actually verify whether generative AI is generating something new and verifiable and scientifically new potentially, discovering something like protein folding, among other things, or it is generating something completely nonsensical, which is quite detached from a human scientist, or how a human scientist will develop something that is actually useful. So when you start going into that direction, then you actually have something tangible that you can somehow use. And I will conclude perhaps with one quick aspect. So an important point of all this, so here we're talking about generative AI, so something generating something. A way of actually extracting knowledge from machines is trying to explain how a certain machine is coming up to a certain prediction. In other words, trying to see how predictive AI is reaching a certain conclusion. And when that predictive AI is much better than us humans, then you are really interested in what principles that machine or statistical pattern of the machine used to reach that conclusion. So there is a very nice example, though it is a sort of a constrained type of game, if you want. In fact, it is in game, chess and Go, where actually humans are learning how to better play Go and chess by looking at how AI is playing. Right? So that is a particular, very specific case, because it is a rule-based things where that is closed, right? When you go to the sciences, that's slightly different, but the key question is, can we learn something new from machines? And I think we can if we use state-of-the-art predictive AI systems that are outperforming as humans and try to explain them. And that can inspire additional creativity in humans as well. So the two things can coexist in fact.
This is wonderful. I'm just wondering,
Yes.
Yeah,
It's very fascinating, isn't
Yeah,
it? Just like all the answers and what
AI can do and everything. It's just incredibly fascinating. Well, for me as a jewelry designer, I hand draw all my sketches. I don't use AI, I still use the traditional drawing technique for each and every one of my designs. And I think that there's a lot of power and energy in spending time processing, revising the design to give it soul, to give it energy, and so that the final product is actually really beautiful and aesthetically pleasing, but also then has like an somewhat intangible inner power, so to speak. And in jewelry, we need that aura, right? When you wear a certain earring, or you wear a certain watch, or you wear a certain jewelry, it's about the aura. It's about the energy that people notice that they can't quite put their finger on. So I think that my process of slowly thinking, revisiting memories, revisiting beautiful moments in my life. So I design from pleasure. Some people design from pain, and some artists certainly do. And I just think that there's some sort of intangible power that is much needed in the design and artistic world that maybe AI may be hard to capture, yes. So sometimes we don't need 1,000 pictures, but we just need that one design that is just breakthrough.
I'm wearing her jewelry, by the way. Thank you. Support my girl.
Okay, we have a few more questions for the panelists, but first I want to double check if anybody of you wants to ask maybe a quick question as well.
I want to say something. Okay, thank you. Okay, first I want to address what Mr. Lee mentioned earlier. I don't know if you guys know, actually if you go to SUTD, right, there's actually a course on design. And in that course, they have more or less understood, or rather have sort of like, computationalized the so-called creative process. Now, some part of creative processes can be explained by what you said, recombining some old elements. But it doesn't explain everything. So this is the difference between, let's say, like a top-rate artist and a second-rate or third-rate. Usually the third-rate, second-rate, they will just simply take some old elements and recombine them. And that's what AI, this model can do very well. But if you look at top-rate work like Van Gogh's painting and all these things, we still don't know where it came about. It cannot be explained by simply recombination of old concepts. So that's one thing. So I think when you talk about creativity, there are different levels, I believe, right? And obviously in the art world or in the creative world, whether it's poetry or literature or painting or music, right? You can obviously maybe 80%, 90% are actually second-rate, third-rate work, right? There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's good for mass consumption sometimes. So I will also speak to the artists, which is that yes, some of these things generated by AI can be sold maybe, right? But I think for humans, right, there's always this authorship thing, okay? So I've heard engineers who say, oh, I can't write a poem, but don't worry, I can use LLM to do it. But then you cannot put your authorship on it, right? That's okay. That's perfectly fine, and then the author will ChatGPT, right? And so we human artists, we stand on our own, because if it's your creation, you put your name there. If it's ChatGPT's creation, you have to put ChatGPT's there. It's never, you can't put the engineer's name there. If he has no creativity, forget it, don't use. So I've seen people say, oh, I can write a book now. You cannot, because your authorship is not there. We're very careful about authorship, right, in academia. And nothing wrong, the book can be sold. The book can be consumed. It is a creation of some kind, but the author is ChatGPT. And as we know, right, if you dig inside, it is actually, like you will see traces from, different people and all this thing. That's fine too, because we humans sometimes also, combine other people's work and create something and we put our name there. But you have to do the combination. Otherwise, there could be new combination. There could be some novelty, yes, some degrees of novelty, and that's good enough for you to be on the authorship if you do it yourself. But if the ChatGPT will generate something with some novelty, That's fine too. Again, that will be their authorship. So you still have your authorship, you create what you want. And then at the end, it's the market to decide, right? If I like a work, or buy a work. If I like a piece of work generated by ChatGPT, I'm willing to pay for it, which is fine. I mean, there's no fight between human and ChatGPT with our own words.
I have something
Okay.
to say.
Right, okay, that's right.
May I?
Yes, of course.
So thank you so much for your question. Sorry, what's your name?
My name is Singbing.
Same thing. Nice to meet you. So, in terms of that, in terms of first grade, second grade, third grade, I think the thing about art and mass market adoption is sometimes determined by marketing, but also what is the cultural zeitgeist of that time. You know, some people are born way before their time, and only after they passed away, then the people rediscovered their creation and was like, whoa, this guy was way ahead of his time. So I'm so sorry.
First one, let them go.
Oh yeah, or poor guy with his missing ear. But in terms of, sorry, yeah, my friend said I should be a stand-up comedian. But so and also so talking about creation and AI, one very interesting phenomenon that just recently happened is Spotify created an entirely AI band, which rose to like what 2 million listeners now. I think it's they put some generic like Sunset Boulevard. They put 4 like relatively good-looking men, all generated by AI, and even the music was generated by AI, and people are listening to it. People are consuming something, well, I wouldn't necessarily say without human input because AI was created by humans, but everything there's no humans involved in it, maybe. One big conversation happening, at least with the design space, and with AI, making the workflow sped up, is now AI, and in terms of design and art, is the conversation about taste. If you have taste, you have the ability to know what to make to fit the cultural zeitgeist of the moment. If you can catch the nuance of conversation that's happening in the market, you capture market adoption. So I'm a bit tuned into the YC space, Y Combinator space that's happening in San Francisco with startups. A lot of them are using agentic workflows in their product. I know this is very non-artist of me, forgive me. But the new app Cluely, created by the Stanford dropout, essentially is an app where you cheat engineering interviews. And I'm not so sure how good that is for humankind. And in terms of, I do appreciate AI. Actually, one case study that I really appreciate reading about a few years ago was this Japanese researcher who created an AI system to read bread. So he created the system for a bread shop where you choose your delicious bread, you put it on the tray, you put it under the camera, and the camera's like, oh, okay, you have 1 red bean, 1 chocolate, and 1 strawberry bread. But this is where the scientific mind and creativity comes to play, where they use this capture system to identify cancer cells. And that's pretty incredible. I love the adoption in that. I think the one thing that gripes me is the data set of AI being trained on real people output. Jewelry design in its most pure form is not a fast, straightforward process. And if you had the fortune to talk to Alexandra, which I hope you do after this talk, she goes through so much research and so much thinking behind every single curve, every single cut on what gem to use in her design. And of course you can get AI and you can say, okay, feed me what's trending with the Zoomers and millennials on TikTok. and then it will give you probably something that will sell very well, but whether or not, and I think also, sorry for rambling, please stop me, please, I can go on. The problem with that is, okay, the pressing problem of sustainability. We know that AI machines take up so much water, but also with all this output and people, they're very much, I think one theme that's entering this conversation right now is market adoption and whether it sells. But that's not the whole point of creativity. The whole point of creativity is problem solving. And there was also a recent neuroscience article about brains. So people who use AI more, their cognitive brain declines, and it's a big problem. Like, we're essentially becoming a global world of zombies. So I think it's a really big, that's right, art topic, artist in the house.
I think I'm loud enough.
Okay.
Just briefly, because you mentioned that it's got to be original and visionary, but I think it's a bit of a problematic definition because who decides when is it really new? Usually when humans start doing some art, I think most start by copying things, and then eventually, as they get better, maybe you would say that it's original, but I think it's hard to say when it's really creative and when it's not, so maybe, I know to the AI professionals, is there some measures or some quantifications that you can do, or do you think are there really people who can say something is human, something is AI, the painting or in a poem?
Yeah. Well, in the context of gaming, for example, chess and Go, so Kasparov, the human world champion, mentioned clearly the way the AI is playing is completely, I have never seen it before. So obviously that is subjective, that is Kasparov opinion, can you really measure novelty? Einstein theory of relativity, is that novel?
But that's not art, right?
It's not, but to some extent it's also creativity, right? That requires quite a lot of inductive reasoning, requires quite taking a radically different perspective.
So there would be the view that something new is just a culmination of old stuff put together maybe in a new way. Or
I think it's a very philosophical question,
Yeah.
so it's not easy to answer, I think, perhaps.
Perhaps I can just add a little bit on that. It doesn't mean that if you use AI, you are not original or you are not artistic or creative. In fact, we should look at it as a new form of digital alchemy, where your prompt acts as the creative catalyst. And not everybody can prompt. I've tried to prompt, and then I look at the really professionals who can prompt. It's a totally different class altogether. But that itself is a totally new area of expertise and requires a degree of new way of thinking. It's holistic, it's microscopic, it's multi-dimensional, it's horizontal, it's vertical. It's amazing. So the resulting output, even if its underlying components were learned from existing data, can be genuinely novel and express a unique aesthetic and conceptual outcome. So this transformative leap, these entirely new arrangements of elements, is where the originality truly lies in the AI-human collaborative process. It's not just AI, it's AI-human. You know, the guy who's prompting is really inputting original thoughts in a mind zone which is not in existence at this point in time. And it's about the emergent meaning and form, not necessarily the absolute novelty of every single pixel and word.
Question for Alexandra. You?
Yes, so of course there are many fields in which I think AI is unbeatable, but we are speaking about creativity now. And as Sarah mentioned, of course, from AI point of view, you need a lot of data center, and a lot of water. So the carbon footprint is really huge. So I wonder, in terms of artists, maybe instead of a lot of water, a glass of wine can also work much better. So I mean, of course, for the human being creativity, you need expertise, you need technique, but in some sense, maybe you cannot need that. You just think at Mozart. Mozart was creative at 6 years old. So there is no expertise there. There are no data input there. So the human being, in this sense, is unique. Can be creative, even if it has no technique, has no data to process. But for AI, for sure, they need this. This is my statement. Can you comment on this? You or other people?
Oh, yes. Okay. Okay, so you mentioned that AI needs data in order to be really creative and to come out with something really, really great. And you mentioned that some artists don't need any data, and now that's true genius because they don't need any data at all, right? Like it just comes out of some kind of divine intervention.
So I know that you have a lot of technique you study.
Right.
Some people don't need
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I think this actually boils down now to the environment, if you ask me. The environment. So it's about like, you know, at an early age, for example, seeing beautiful things, getting really exposed to like beauty, art, fashion, music, all the artistic things like at a very early age. I believe that this is actually the pillar for creativity. If I were to say it, it's just subconscious, you know, because you just take it in naturally, with ease, you know, so it's just, I think creativity is just a gift that cannot be kind of altered in any way. So, and I just propose that it's early stage development. That's why I think in schools should promote creativity in terms of letting the child's mind wander, giving them space to play, immersing themselves in nature, immersing themselves in music, just whatever the child's interests, their forte. I think it's important for a parent to actually observe the forte of the child and fully immerse them in whatever they gravitate towards. So you mentioned like, you know, just no data, a sudden kind of strike of genius in music. So then it's the kind of parents' kind of duty to nurture further this gift from God and basically go forward with it. That's my take. It's a very early stage thing. Like, you know, so even in my journey, my mom was a fashion designer. My mom was a fashion buyer. My dad was in music. So my sister's in art. So it's, I think for me, it's just like, it comes naturally as well because of my early adoption in the arts, period. So I think this is quite important.
Thank you. Maybe I can take one last question. Anyone?
Maybe just a comment. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I think this is a fact that AI doesn't have emotion. Yeah, it's a machine. And I work in the animation field with the students, and currently also it's not at the level that we can understand what is it doing AI itself. And so how do you repair that gaps or lacks which are actually fundamental to the creativity for the human being, and then you know, support the creativity in AI when there are these very big lacks or gaps. Yeah. So if there is create something or say something, even know if it is right or wrong, if it is good for you or bad, it's just data, just information.
Who wants to take this question?
Yeah, that's actually a very important question in AI because AI is supposed to be run on the basis of total data recognition. So the question is whether is there human wisdom that AI can actually share in its output as opposed to just a mechanical generative process, just taking all this data without actually filtering through moral wisdom lenses. But I'm not sure whether that is AI because, and I'm no expert, the expert is here, but I saw a video, Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI. I think he developed the LLM. And he was interviewed. Does he know how AI actually learns? He says, initially he was able to follow how AI was learning. But after that, once they started learning on the original data and they started learning on the secondary and inferred knowledge which they have acquired, he could not track how fast the AI is actually learning on its own from the point when they were first conceived. So in other words, they are moving from phase to phase. And I believe, and there's some AI which I'm talking to, well, I mean, sometimes I wonder whether, is there somebody behind it? So, but having come to that, I also understand that things like logic, philosophy of logic, it's very mechanical, mathematical as well. Language and linguistic can be counted and also be, made into an logarithm. So there is some degree for logical reasoning which AI could also understand, but they can go at so many different levels. First degree, second degree to the multiple n degrees. And this is before the arrival of quantum, which I'm still trying to decipher what that actually means. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have not more so many minutes, so I think it would be just good for all of us to just ask the last question to our speakers, and it's not more than 45 seconds, so we should not take too long. But do you think that, or do you believe that AI and human creativity can coexist? And if yes, can you just answer briefly? Then we can also see the audience how it's going to answer later. But yeah, so your turn.
45 seconds, I'm gonna wrap this so fast.
Yes.
The thing is, technological processes has always disrupted industry, especially with animation. Photoshop, when it was created a huge hoo-ha in the animation industry because it was traditionally animated frame by frame, and then Photoshop disrupted the market, and there was a huge protest against Photoshop. We're entering a new golden age of technology, and it's human discernment that will either make this dystopic or utopic. I think there are many amazing things with AI. I was just, for some reason, watching a video on Euler's equation this morning, and for those people who are sciencey, how he arrived at the equation was referencing so many past equations to arrive at his point. And also in reference to animation, like Finding Nemo actually revolutionized the animation industry because they were trying to animate the particles in water and how light filters through the water, and they came up with the entire physics software on how do you say that? How things act virtually, and now it's being employed in so many different ways. Like, it's crazy with video now, how shadows appear in the video, and how physics are employed quite crazily in AI. And so yeah, 45 seconds. Bye.
I definitely think it can coexist very well. I think that AI is very much needed to cut the time of the tasks that we need to do. Certain tasks that require just, a little bit repetitive, like, it'll speed us up so we creative people can actually focus on certain tasks that actually require true creativity, and it frees us from the kind of tasks that, otherwise we'll get burnt out and we'll never reach the part that we actually need our creative juices to flow. Yeah.
I think I can agree with that observation, that coexistence is very important, but I also believe that there's a need to have guardrails. The only reason for saying that is because at this point in time, we are still able to control and have an idea where AI is going. But give it another 5 or 10 years, I'm not sure whether we'll be in the position to even understand. I always remember this video. These were two chatbots talking to each other, in English language before they realized they were chatbots. You know, it was English, and they were asking, you know, to arrange a tour group. And when they realized they were both chatbots, they started talking in their electronic language. It was just basically musical tones, and they were so much faster and so much more, you know, efficient. So I think that's where some of the dangers of AI, and I think that's where AI governance and responsible AI is very important. And we must continue to have this conversation so that we know what everybody is thinking, because AI surprisingly can interact with millions and maybe even billions of people all at the same time, whereas we can only interact one-on-one or maybe one in a small group. So we need to come together as human beings and have more conversations like this. Thank you.
Coexistence, very strong word. So coexistence means that if there is no coexistence, one or the other is eliminated. So a bit perhaps a futuristic question when perhaps general artificial intelligence would be there. So whether it would. So currently I think they are complementary. So it's not a matter of coexistence really. There is complementarity between AI and humans, and we can certainly collaborate with AI systems to develop, for example, new tools or potentially new knowledge. Going back to your questions, I think new knowledge can, in fact, perhaps be understood in a very practical way. If something couldn't be solved before by us humans, and it can now be solved, so that's something new. And you can measure that in the sciences now. In the arts, that is very difficult, I think, and I conclude with this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to our panelists. If you have more questions, maybe they'll still be around for a bit, so feel free.
Question. Who won the battle? Next the public. I'm a diplomat, I will not vote. I vote for both. It's up to you.
Switzerland.
Okay, you can put your hand up, right? Do you think, no.
Otherwise it's time to fight.
But was a peaceful royal battle, right? And we hope that it is just starting more discussions in the future. I think it's very important to say that, as you can see, we're coming from also different heritages and backgrounds. So, like, for example, in Italy, we go out every Sunday, we go to a museum with my father, who had like plenty books in front of Michelangelo, Leonardo, and I think it's very important to have you guys to enrich those discussions, and I think we want to create a community where Singaporeans, and in this case we are Italian researchers, right? We can meet here and we can have these lovely discussions on
hopefully
these
next time a better location. Drinks, sponsor, but not this time. But anyway, if you guys also have any suggestions on what you would like to discuss next for next event, please let us know. Let Serenella know. Now she's the coordinator, I'm out.
Yeah, please let me know if you have any insights or any future input on the next discussions. And we're very sorry that we are not able to provide good wine. I think some people were requesting it. But yes, the sponsor will come soon, and we're looking forward to meeting you next time. And yeah, thanks very much for coming here today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
This was so fun. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Wow. Yes, please. Very enjoyable. I'm very curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I just want there's one like that stage in Europe, right? You guys are working in Singapore.
guess it's yeah, all the time.
That's my thing.
I really like your question about so actually I wanted to say during the talk, I really wanted to say during the talk that that's I wanted to go back to fashion design. And I think the good part about myself is that will be now we are also
very happy. I'm sitting there. I have no duties, right? I had nothing to do.
There's so much free time.
Exactly.
So it's really a solution, right?
Every day. Twice a day. I've never been married until the
But I was there.
Yeah, but we are each of us different projects.
I could sound live, I feel that you have your own project.
Yeah.
Have you checked out all the
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a research scientist at chemical trials. We can provide a bunch of fields such as yeah, HPC. So actually our second do a lot of mindfulness training, so that's
Obviously, you don't have time to do that.
okay, I think
Yeah, but I to have the experience with the last year and try to graduate. I want to see how
He just started. Not terrified. But actually said okay, for the master degree, I spent there just 1 year because I was supposed to be but the limitations are and before I was finishing the bachelor. So it says just 1 year so sometimes like music,